Tonight on News 5 Live, on the eve of a state of emergency for the entire country, we'll tell you what you can expect for the next 30 days. Police are called to a business in the city where social distancing was not being observed. Ministry of Health threatens to revoke the license of any pharmacy that sells 2 untested meds for coronavirus. Attorney Arthur Saldivar is charged and released on bail for firearm offenses after a firearm and ammo are found at his family's house. Rafael Sansores dies after he was accidentally shot by a friend with a pellet gun. The Social Security Board and Labor Department answer your burning questions on Ask the Experts webcast. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast.
What's better than unlimited text messages with your postpaid plan?
Good evening. Welcome to News 5 Live for Wednesday, April 1st. I am Marlene Cuellar. It has been 39 years since the last state of emergency of this kind was imposed, but at midnight tonight, a national shutdown will kick in across the country, placing restrictions on the movement of persons outside of 5 in the morning to 7:59 at night, when a curfew will be in place. Businesses considered as essential services, such as the media, supermarkets, and pharmacies, will operate with government-issued passes, and the police and BDF will be on the streets to ensure compliance with the strict measures. Those measures have been articulated in an 18-page document that forms the Belize Constitution Emergency Powers Regulations 2020. This is the latest course of action being taken by government in the fight against the spread of COVID-19 in Belize. Tonight, News 5's Isani Caetano looks at what you can expect in the 30 days ahead.
When we wake up Thursday morning, we're in a state of national emergency.
Across the country, Belizeans will awaken to a new reality on April 2nd. The biosecurity risk associated with the transmission of the novel coronavirus has prompted government to take stringent measures in restricting the free movement of citizens. With the Governor General's assent, the Barrow administration is now empowered to perform actions and impose policies that, under any other circumstance, save for a natural disaster, civil unrest, or armed conflict, it would not be authorized to carry out.
We have a plan in place. All we're waiting for this to be made official and law, and the generals and the colonels will be the ones to direct how best it is to carry out this particular mandate. As you know, the police have the power of arrest, but in here we are seeing where the police can bring in the help of the BDF and the Coast Guard to help with arrests if necessary. But there is a plan in place. It's a Herculean task indeed, because you're talking about the entire nation. But it is something that we have been thinking about now for the past month.
Given a third confirmation of COVID-19 on March 29th, the Belize Constitution Emergency Powers Regulations 2020 have been enacted, effecting a state of national emergency. Such a proclamation warns the citizenry to change normal behavior and requires government agencies, including law enforcement, to implement urgent strategies.
We have a plan to implement it, because indeed we do want to enforce the law, but we want as soft a touch as possible and not as much as the military presence. That's not necessary. But if we have to, and that's the only way to enforce what we have to do to prevent anybody else from contracting this disease, then that's what we will do.
This morning, during the final hours just ahead of the national state of emergency, there was a flurry of activity in parts of Belize City. On the south side, residents of Port Loyola joined a meandering line of last-minute customers at 88 Shopping Center. Among the policies stipulated in the Belize Constitution Emergency Powers Regulations 2020 is social distancing. Under this piece of law, social distancing is defined as the practice of staying at home, avoiding crowds, and refraining from touching one another, and maintaining a distance of no less than 3 feet from other persons. Many in that queue were not adhering to these guidelines, and the police had to be called in.
Guys, we just want to maintain our distance, so I want you guys to work with us, work with police, work with yourself. As long as we adhere to these rules, everything will be okay. Everybody are getting turned to go inside the store.
It is clear that there is a real risk to the health and lives of Belizeans as a result of the outbreak of this infectious disease. In response, far-reaching measures must be put in place to limit the negative effects of this pandemic. I am satisfied, having received the best advice available from experts and after consultation, that it is in the public's interest to support the decision to declare a state of emergency.
For the purposes of preventing, controlling, containing, and suppressing the spread of COVID-19, as well as maintaining peace and public order, a curfew will be imposed during the hours of 8 o'clock p.m. and 4:59 a.m. of the following morning for the entire country during the public emergency.
One of the first things that we've done operationally is to step up the emergency operating the emergency operating mechanism that we had, the EOC. One that has been functioning very well in terms of bringing all the players that have been working so far in the field to coordinate their activities. And that EOC will be ramped up and have within it the heads of the various security apparatuses.
The hotline for the National Security EOC is 0800 COVID-19. That's 0800 268 4319. Reporting for News 5, I am Isana Cayetano.
There are restrictions on persons considered essential services who will function during 5 a.m. and 8 p.m., but their movement is limited to their functions. The Commissioner of Police, Chester Williams, explained this morning on Open Your Eyes how officers will treat these persons who will have to present an identification.
It is expected that no one except for essential workers who will be in the course of their employment should be out on the streets.
And course of employment means they're out doing their job or going to work.
Yes, between those particular times. And those are persons like police, the military, medical workers, maybe the man who services the ATM from the banks. BL linesman might need to come out to fix some blackout situation. And with that, when it comes to those persons, other than the security forces, they'll need to have a pass. Right? So what is being done is that the businesses in respective districts are hereby advised to submit the list of those persons they expect will be out during the curfew hours to the officer commanding that district. Then the officer commanding that district is going to send those names to me, providing that they are vetted first, because we want to ensure that they're not putting anybody's name on the list. We need to ensure that whoever appears on the list do work at that establishment and do provide such service. Once that list is sent to me and it is properly vetted, we then prepare the pass, and then the pass will be signed by the Minister of National Security. And then the pass will be sent back to the respective district for distribution to those business establishments who had applied.
As a correction, those passes will be needed between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. As you know, a number of persons are already facing charges for not observing social distancing, as is required at this time to contain the spread of COVID-19. To ensure that everyone complies with the measures of the state of emergency, police and the BDF will be on the streets, checking those persons moving around between 5 a.m. and 8 p.m. The Commissioner of Police, Chester Williams, says strict adherence is expected.
Yeah, we do get calls about gatherings at homes, and we do respond, and we appreciate the calls. Of course. Some of them, when they do respond, they are family members. They're socializing among themselves, and that is okay. If it is that we find someone within the gathering who is not from there, then we would tell that person to leave, and then we warn the crowd. But again, I have said to my officers, we have done enough warning. By now, people should be able to understand what the law is. And we need to now progress beyond warning. And that's the reason why you have seen we have made a number of arrests in terms of persons who have acted in violation of the law. And we're going to continue to do that. We have surpassed the warning stage. And we are now arresting people. Over the 24 hours, we have a few arrests again.
What's the potential penalty?
What we do, well, they have those who pled guilty in Punta Gorda, and they were charged $1,000 each. But again, going to the issue of keeping people in custody, my directive to the officers is that you bring the person, you charge, and give bail right away. So we don't keep you in custody. Right? If it is that you are a second offender, then we're going to keep you in custody.
Even though all entry points have been closed, Belizeans cannot be left stateless and are allowed to re-enter the country. But because persons returning from countries where the COVID-19 is thriving didn't fully observe isolation, they are now being placed in mandatory quarantine. In Corozal town, a hotel is under heavy guard to ensure that returning Belizeans are under lock and key. News 5's Dwayne Moody reports.
Armed military men have been posted for a few days now at the Huckle Kin Hotel in Corozal town. The area is now locked off to vehicular traffic, and civilians and soldiers keeping guard can be seen wearing masks and gloves. Word is that several persons who recently returned to Belize via the border entry point in the north were being quarantined at that location. Mayor Rigoberto Vale says it's concerning.
It's a major concern for our community, and I hope that the ministry looks into it and all the authorities look into it. Yes, I can tell you that I have passed around the Huckle Kin and I have seen we have soldiers there. It would be very alarming for our community. Then it will also show us that the authorities set in place has failed, because at no point no one is supposed to be quarantined in the middle of the town. We have already, or the task force, together with the Ministry of Health, as far as I know, has already designated an area for quarantine, which is ITVET, and if that's the case, that's where those people belong.
It is known that about 9 to 10 Belizeans return home on a daily basis. Over the weekend, 9 persons were screened by the Customs and Excise Department, Immigration, and the Ministry of Health at the northern border and had to go into mandatory quarantine.
In the last 5-6 days, we have had to come up with more and more measures because it's difficult for us to be able to control human behavior, and we had not wanted to go and be so drastic with some of the measures that we are now taking or suggesting, because we are only suggest and advise, and these are executed by other agencies, not only the Ministry of Health. So initially we had a quarantine measure set up. 24 hours later we realized we needed to amend it, and Sunday we amended it further to talk about mandatory quarantine measures. I believe 9 people are currently now on the mandatory quarantine.
What does that mean? They're at an institution that is set up, or a hotel that's been rented for them?
A hotel that people will have to pay, because I think when we said this 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had said in a press release, you are likely to come in and pay for your own, for foreigners and for Belizeans as well.
Mayor Rigoberto Vale says that the council has been working along with the Ministry of Health, and that mattresses and other supplies have been put in place at the ITVET compound in the Santa Rita Heights area of Corozal, which has been designated as the isolation area for COVID-19.
I can easily and proudly say that this council has been working very close with the Ministry of Health. They have reached out to us several times to help them. For example, we took all the mattresses at the ITVET where the quarantine is supposed to be held. We have a direct connection with the task force, so we are working very close with them. This is not the time for politics. This is a time where we need to take care of our town, take care of our community and our people.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
As you've seen, the BDF is on guard at a hotel in Corozal, where a number of persons are on mandatory quarantine. This morning, the commissioner said the police should be kept in the loop by the authorities about persons under quarantine. He acknowledges that though people have a right to privacy, if the police don't know who is in quarantine, his officers can be put at risk. This comes on the heels of a police intervention at an incident in the city where more than 10 persons had gathered.
And I have discussed with Mr. Manzanero, the doctor, and I've said to him that I would like for us to be informed. And not just to be able to monitor, but also for the safety of our officers.
Of course.
Because we go to do searches at homes, and we don't want that our officers go and do searches at home where there's someone being quarantined, and then our officers are exposed, like what happened yesterday. We went and conducted searches at 2 houses, and those 2 houses, we happened to come across persons who were on quarantine.
Wow.
Right? And that is how we get to know of...
Hosting get-togethers, right?
Yeah, and in
so
one
clearly
case,
when we think people understand how this works, it's not the case.
In one case, one of the person was socializing with others, which is wrong.
And came back from the epicenter.
Yes.
in the
right?
U.S.
So we're looking at that particular case. We're trying to get certain information from the Ministry of Health in terms of when he came in, who gave him the quarantine, the order to quarantine, and once we get those reduced in writing, then we're going to charge him because he should ensure that he comply with the quarantine requirements.
Yeah.
Right? And if it is that, even if it is his girlfriend or his child, they are not to come into contact with him.
For 14 days?
Yes. You know, so we're looking at that particular case.
Today, the Director of Health Services came down hard on any pharmacy that is selling two medications, hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin. It is reported that a number of persons have been purchasing the two meds, which have been touted in some countries as a cure for COVID-19. The director reminds the public that the two medications should only be bought with a prescription since the meds can have serious side effects. According to health officials, there's no registration of hydroxychloroquine being imported into Belize for the year. The ministry says that any pharmacy engaged in the sale of the medication will have its license revoked. In the case of hydroxychloroquine, which has been used to treat malaria and rheumatic diseases, it has not yet been proven as a treatment for COVID-19. As part of measures to contain spending in the public sector, the government is cutting fuel allocations for some ministries. The cutback represents a 25% reduction in allocations to designated ministries. The Financial Secretary, Joseph Wade, wrote in a memo that effective today, which is the start of the new financial year, the reductions are to take place. The sectors that will not be affected involve the security forces, transport, and health. Government is also imposing a freeze on increments and other allowances that were to be paid to public officers. The Social Security Board was a representative on today's Ask the Experts live webcast. General Manager of Corporate and Customer Relations Chandra Cancino spoke about Social Security's arrangements for the submission of claims. They have made their essential services available online, and they are encouraging the public to use this medium. For those who are not able to, there are drop boxes at branch offices, but she notes that if you use that option, to expect some slight delays with the processing of your claims. Cancino explains.
One of the big areas that we have right now or that we're promoting is the submission. Well, for us, essential services is the processing and payment of claims and pensions, and also the payment of contributions by the employers. Employers have access now to our online portal, so they don't need to come to the office to make payments. If they have not signed up, they can reach out to the relevant inspectors, and that can be done for them in a very short period of time. For the claimants, persons submitting claims, we now have two facilities available. They can drop their claims in one of the branch drop boxes that we have available across the country, and they can submit their claim online via an email address. Now, what we are promoting is that we are asking that as much as possible that persons who are submitting claims to Social Security at this time submit your claims through the email option. Why are we asking that? We are asking that because the process will be faster for those persons. Your claim goes directly to someone who is actually sitting manning that email information, and the process of exchange then starts immediately. For example, if your claim is not complete, if you need a form filled in, then that interaction takes place immediately. If you drop your claim in a drop box, in one of the drop boxes, which is also accepted, there is certainly, we will ask persons that use that option to expect delays. One of the reasons is because those claims also have to go through a sanitization process, simply because of the studies that show that the COVID-19 virus can remain on cardboard for as much as 24 hours. So those claims are then sanitized. I think they're put aside for a day or two and sanitized, and then they're processed by our staff, because we have to keep our staff safe as well.
And for those who may get sick and want to submit their paperwork, well, those persons don't have to hurry to do so. Cancino says that they have extended the submission deadline by several months. Here's how it will work.
We also have extended or waived the late claim submission timeline for all sickness benefit short-term claims. So at this time, there is no late penalty that will be invoked on any claim whatsoever that you make to Social Security. You know, there is no need to be running to the office to submit your claim for fear of being penalized for a late submission.
And how long is that grace period for?
That is for the next 6 months.
Okay.
And if we need to extend it beyond that time, we will be doing that as well. So at this time, there is no late penalty for the submission of any claim for Social Security.
The email address for claims submission is claims@socialsecurity.org.bz. You're asked to take a clear and complete image or scan of your claim form and email it in. Coming up, attorney Arthur Saldivar gets bail for firearm charges.
Planning your next vacation?
Attorney Arthur Saldivar was released from detention today after he secured bail at the magistrate court. Saldivar is facing a slew of firearm and ammunition offenses following a police search at a house in Camalote, which he says is the home of the extended Saldivar family. The attorney spent 2 nights in lockdown, and he believes he's been targeted since the weekend when he made a Facebook post that did not sit well with authorities. News 5's Hippolyta Novello reports.
It was an experience he says he wishes on no one.
I didn't realize how much you would miss seeing the sun in the sky, even just for 2 days. I was not in one of those nasty cells, but it's not something that I wish on anybody, to be locked up.
After spending almost 48 hours in a holding cell in Belmopan, attorney Arthur Saldivar today walked out of the Belmopan Magistrate Court a free man. He was offered a met bail of $20,000. This is after police slapped him with firearm-related charges. 4 counts of kept ammunition without a gun license, kept firearm without a gun license, and being in possession of an unregistered bulletproof vest. Officers found a 12-gauge pump-action shotgun, 1 20-gauge cartridge, 2.22 rounds of ammunition, 74 rounds of 9mm rounds of ammunition, 25 12-gauge cartridges, and 1 bulletproof vest. The items were found at Saldivar's family residence in Camalote village on Monday night.
This is not my home. This is the family residence. I spend time here from time to time. Apart from that, I was also charged with kept unlicensed ammunition relating to a .22 caliber firearm. My father, who is now deceased, who was murdered in 2014, was the license holder of a .22 Smith & Wesson pistol. Again, I would not be doing any kind of deep cleaning in this house to search for possible, wrongs in here. Again, it's not my home. The only cleaning that is done by a housekeeper who comes in from time to time. Outside that, there was also a 20-gauge cartridge that was a part of the search that came up. And again, this is Camalote. Brother Fem would know that the people of Camalote go and shoot guana and garobo all the time. My dad was a lover of these kinds of meats, and he would buy rungs for these people who would do that. So again, that would be a possible explanation for why one would be here, but certainly it was not within my purview of knowledge. Outside of that, I was also charged with possession of a bulletproof vest, 2 bulletproof vests. I first saw those things when the police unearthed them in the search. I had no idea that they were here.
After being arrested and charged for spreading false news, Saldivar was arrested again when authorities realized that his gun license had not been renewed after it expired weeks ago.
Let me explain quickly. I have been in and out of the country, and as a result, the date passed. And I've been involved in litigation in Dangriga primarily for a number of months. Outside of Belmopan and Belize City, there's no other place to license a firearm. So it did pass. However, in a normal course, that's not an issue. In a normal course, there's a penalty to be paid. Once you pay the penalty, the license is issued. That was what was done. The penalty was paid, the license was issued legally. It is not unheard of that there are lapses. It happens all the time. In fact, I know of more egregious situations where people have lapsed for years and there is no issue. Because once the license is granted, it can only be revoked under certain definite conditions, and expiration is not one of the conditions for revocation.
Saldivar was released on specific bail conditions. Representing Saldivar was attorney Richard Dickey Bradley.
All this was unnecessary. After Saldivar has a firearm, if it wasn't licensed, just tell her, go down to the station, license your firearm. Don't they do that with the Chinese? Ever say a Chinese can't quote yet because if you get for licensing thing where he's so busy to sell chicken? We ask that they put the regular conditions. He report to the Warren Creek police station. He's not to interfere with the witnesses, which he can't do. They're all police officers. When they hear that now, they will go to his house and search for something else. Yes, you all know that true that.
Saldivar is expected to return to court on July 28. Reporting for News 5, Hipólito Novello.
Attorney Arthur Saldivar believes he's being targeted. The usually outspoken lawyer was first arrested on Saturday and charged with spreading false news. And on Monday, he was arrested for firearm and ammunition offenses. Saldivar believes that the police have been given instructions to target him. He says that his recent run-ins with the law have to do with the redistricting case that is currently before the courts.
It appears to be that they were high-powered rifles from a distance, of course. Those holes are quite deep, and I don't think the vests that were found here would have done anything to that. But certainly I believe that it was a message for me after the challenge was filed for the redistricting case.
When was the message sent?
It was sent right after Christmas. In fact, my mom was here, and when I'm here, I'm normally here with my two children, both minors, one 8, one 11. So it's somewhat concerning. And what is most interesting is that when I told the police this, they didn't bat an eye about it, didn't bother even to look.
What would the message be, and why is it that you link it to the redistricting case?
I link it to the redistricting case because every time I've had a situation of national importance, whether it have been the issue of the passport scandal or now with redistricting, I've been receiving threats. Now it's gone beyond threats now. I've actually lost my freedom for a couple of days, and I don't take that lightly. I believe that after this took place, the shots, there was an expectation that my behavior would have been curtailed to a certain degree. But I don't fear for my life.
In most cases, persons charged for firearm and ammunition offenses are automatically remanded to the Belize Central Prison. That's because the Firearms Act makes the offense non-bailable. Saldivar's attorney Richard Dickey Bradley, however, says that the Act also has provisions that allow the attorney to present special circumstances to the magistrate for bail consideration.
At the end of the day, we also pointed out that the law, which requires that a magistrate is not to grant bail, a lot of persons have overlooked the fact that that law also says a magistrate for special reasons can grant a person bail. And we provided various special reasons as the law requires. And she asked questions and she wrote down the matter. And in the end, our older generation would say, God is great. Amen. That the malice against Arthur Saldivar has come to an end at this phase.
Among the items found at Arthur Saldivar's family residence in Camelota Village was a bulletproof vest. For this, he was charged with being in possession of an unregistered bulletproof vest. But according to Saldivar's attorney, Richard Dickey Bradley, the prosecution attempted to convince the magistrate to remand Saldivar. Bradley says that having a bulletproof vest without the permission of the Commissioner of Police has a penalty of $500.
They say they found 1 or 2 bulletproof vests. And I will tell you this, and you could look back on the record. Some poor, misguided minister who doesn't know anything, once upon a time signed a statutory instrument, which is not a law that goes to the National Assembly, making a bulletproof vest a prohibited item for which a person automatically is denied bail, and if found guilty goes to jail for a minimum of 5 years. And there have been unfortunate citizens, including a lecturer at our university, who has felt the brunt of that law. A stupid law, because a bulletproof vest is manufactured to save lives. In a violent society, we all should have a bulletproof vest when we go to funerals in Belize City. Bullets are always flying there. That law has been put aside a long time ago. You just apply to the Commissioner of Police if you want a bulletproof vest. If he doesn't grant it to you, no problem. If you still have it, the most you pay is $500 for having a bulletproof vest.
Police are investigating the shooting death of a resident of the Chula Vista area of Corozal town. Rafael Sansores was at a close friend's house in the White Cocal area, and while playing with a pellet gun, it accidentally discharged. The pellet struck Sansores to the chest. He was rushed to the Corozal Community Hospital and then further transferred to the Northern Regional Hospital in Orange Walk, but succumbed while receiving treatment. While his friend has been detained by police, we're told that while being transported by the ambulance traveling to the hospital, the 20-year-old said that it was an accident and that he didn't want any charges against his friend. A News 5 crew was in Corozal today and spoke with Sansores' brother-in-law, Arnel Neal.
We made a home, the man made a whole day to watch TV, but we don't know when the man gone. So when he come over and see my bike, so I say, well, the man guide it. So we know he paid no mind. So yeah, cause we know he go right there, friend there, the phone. So yeah, afterwards we get a call from him. Yeah, he man sound like he cry. He asked for data. So yeah, he talked to data. Then that's how he give data the news. But how he just get shot. That pellet gone close to his heart, and they carry the orange truck.
Shot as an intentional shot?
No, it said it was an accident. Never mean he did it. He was playing with it.
He and his friend, no?
Yeah, he and his friend, yeah.
He was rushed to the Orange Rock Hospital.
Yeah, he was to the original hospital. He didn't make it in the surgery. He heart failure or something, he gave up or something. I say heart, the thing I get, if you understand, the heart may stop. He pump, he come back, but after that, the thing, I heart stop again, I did never come back. Let me try to bring her back.
After the break, the Prime Minister ensures that there is enough foreign exchange for imports. Supermarkets and select grocery stores will be allowed to remain open during the next 30 days of a national state of emergency. On a needs-only basis, persons will be allowed to purchase dry goods as well as other imported items, which means that other businesses within the supply chain would need direct access to foreign exchange. The availability of U.S. dollars remains a concern for a number of importers who say there is some difficulty in securing American currency within the local market. Prime Minister Barrow told the media during Tuesday's press conference that there is enough U.S. dollars presently being held by the commercial banks.
The foreign exchange applications are going in the first instance to the commercial banks. They're working together with the central bank on a system of prioritization. We know, for example, we must pay for energy that comes from CFE. So BL is a priority. We must pay for fuel, and Puma has to get the foreign exchange so that we can import fuel. So there's that kind of priority list that has been developed, but the importers are in fact somewhere on that list, not at the top, not necessarily near to the very top. And there is, at this point in time, enough foreign exchange for them to be able to get their fair share. The time may well come when we need to say to people, we're going to cut back on non-essential imports, on luxury items being imported, but we're not there yet. I should have said earlier that one of the things we're doing, and this one is being handled by the Financial Secretary, is to have a discussion with the IMF as to some balance of payment support. That's not as important as the other flows that we're getting, which will put cash and food directly to our people. But getting balance of payment support will mean an additional infusion of foreign exchange. And now that I mention it, everything that we're getting from the IDB, from the World Bank, from OFID, those are infusions of foreign exchange. So we are being careful, we are monitoring the situation closely, but we're not yet at a point where the central bank would have to intervene and start giving out foreign exchange from its own reserves. The amount of foreign exchange that the commercial banks have on hand is adequate for the time being.
During the national shutdown, there are going to be several other businesses in various sectors that will be ceasing their operations, forcing employees to go jobless during the 30-day interim. The fate of those workers will be left hanging in the balance as a result of the urgent decision taken by the state. So how will this issue be resolved? It's a concern that, according to PM Barrow, is being addressed by the Ministry of Labor.
Everybody who seeks that advice is being advised by the Ministry of Labor as to obligations when there is an end being put to labor contracts. That certainly won't change, but if a state of emergency is declared and in consequence thereof, businesses are forced to close, that, it seems to me, comes under that a very useful category, legal category of force majeure, or as it used to be known, act of God. In this case, we might be blaspheming, so I prefer the use of force majeure. So that really is the answer. It's not the fault of the employer. It's as a consequence of an act of state. The Labor Ministry will still, I believe, be able to offer some kind of guidance, but at the end of the day, those that are put off for a short period at least can be made whole again very quickly. Naturally, our principal preoccupation remains with those who are not going to close because of the state of emergency, but that have had to close because of the dramatic fall off in tourism and related businesses.
With the tourism industry at a virtual standstill due to COVID-19, the Belize Tourism Board is offering a tax break to hotels across the country. Hoteliers are to first submit their monthly accommodation tax returns and guest registration forms for the month of March on the BTB online portal. The BTB will proceed to apply a 1% tax credit for the total taxes assessed for March, which will in turn cancel the accommodation tax. The BTB is urging stakeholders to continue the continued use of its online portal in respect of monthly submissions so that social distancing guidelines are observed during this time. At the top of the newscast, Chandra Cancino of the Social Security Board spoke on ways to submit claims and the extension of submission timelines for sickness benefits. Another matter discussed during her appearance on the Ask the Experts webcast was the matter of employers' contribution payments. Cancino says that they have made arrangements to address this.
We also have in place what we call the waiver for the employers' contribution payments, and that is an incentive for employers who may be also experiencing cash flow issues at this time, where we are allowing employers to submit a declaration of their contributions, but holding the payment of that, employers will know when I say the FIN 15A, holding the payment of that declaration until further notice. And so at that time, they would be able to make a little repayment arrangement without penalties being invoked on them as well. And so that's effective for the month of April.
And the Social Security Board says that they haven't forgotten the contributory pensions. Chandra Cancino says that their pension was deposited today, a week before it's due. But that is not all. They were also given an advance payment as well. She explains how it will work.
We also provided an advance payment for contributory pensions, and that actually was deposited today, which is an advance payment of not only the month of April, which is due the 9th, but it's also including a 1 month's advance payment as well. So contributory pensioners will be receiving 2 months of payment in their accounts today. So they ask, well, how will the arrangement take, will I be receiving my pension payment next month? The answer is yes. It's just being treated as an advance. And so going forward, when the crisis has been averted or crisis has been lifted or whatever words you want to use, then Social Security will be making a little arrangement with the pensioners to have a little for a repayment plan. And that's going to be something like a 12-month payment plan, so it will not burden the pensioners it shouldn't burden the pensioners in any way.
When we come back, the Labor Commissioner fields questions about labor issues and COVID-19. Beginning Thursday morning, all persons who are considered to be part of the essential services are required to carry a pass, including social workers. The provision of social services, according to CEO Judith Alpuche, is essential during this period, since it is expected that there may be a spike in the number of cases of domestic violence. Those passes require the name, social security number, position or job title, as well as the name of the employer.
In terms of some of the operations of passes, so how do the security forces ensure that the people on the street, particularly during curfew, are the ones that are authorized to be there? Because just because you are employed by some service doesn't mean that you should be on the street. I will use my own ministry as an example. So social workers have been deemed to be essential because unfortunately during times like these you will have we're expecting things like heightened gender-based violence cases, etc. That's an unfortunate factor of the kind of stressors that people will be facing. But it's not any social worker that will be allowed to be out after curfew. So in terms of the passes, etc., that will authorize people and help to identify them to the security forces who will be enforcing the curfew, that's something that is being worked on very diligently by the Ministry of Labor leading the charge there.
Passes will only be issued where the Minister of National Security deems it necessary. Labor Commissioner Anne-Marie Thompson was another guest on Ask the Expert Live show today. A number of questions submitted by online users were about working during the state of emergency, employer obligations, and labor rights. Here's a look at two of the questions raised a couple times during the webcast.
The Prime Minister yesterday said that the employer's obligation to employees under a state of emergency was basically suspended due to force majeure. That the contract of work was also suspended. Can the Labor Commissioner comment?
Well, we are always guided by the Labor Act. And we know that we are treating with unprecedented situations, and the Labor Act does not cover for all. As it relates to employment, I would like to reemphasize that once a contract is in force, the employers and employees are obligated to abide by the terms of that contract.
Okay. Now, I have a question from someone here who says, if the company that employs me doesn't close down, and I myself, for fear of contracting COVID-19, want to stay off work, can they fire me?
Okay, we hear the terminologies close down, shut down. Those terminologies are not covered by the Labor Act. However, if a business ceases to operate, it's different. Now, we know that in order for survival of both employees and employers, actions need to be taken. And our message is that let there be dialogue. Have a conversation with yourselves, employers and employees, and even employers, employees, and trade union. And out of that conversation, an agreement can be made as to how the business will continue and how employees will be facilitated.
Other questions raised during the online session focused on the enforcement of the labor laws during the state of emergency. The online viewers were also concerned about those frontline workers in light of COVID-19. Here's how Labor Commissioner Anne-Marie Thompson responded to those issues.
Will there be an enforcement at the labor level for employers at non-essential services who compel them to work during the state of emergency?
So far, we have all our labor officers working, and they are taking calls from both employers and employees on labor-related matters. So please call us on any issue. We will speak with you, we will record the information, and we will act accordingly, because many of the calls we get, we will have to investigate on a one-on-one basis because circumstances are different.
What are the obligations of the employer to their employees for those businesses that have to shut down due to the state of emergency?
if a business ceases to operate, there are certain benefits that are due to the employees. Benefits would include salaries, it may include vacation pay, it may include severance. What the employer needs to do is to get in touch with the Labor Department and give us the details, give us the information, and then we can advise you appropriately. Not all benefits are due to all persons. It depends on the circumstances.
What happens to frontline workers who become infected on who may become infected on the job? For instance, doctors, nurses, law enforcement. If they're considered essential service, they're infected on the job. How are they impacted?
Well, I can speak from a position of health and safety. All employers have the responsibility to make sure that their employees are protected. And I say this in accordance with one of the conventions we have signed onto as a member of the International Labour Organization, where employers are required to protect employees with protective gears and equipment. So that is very important. Now, most organizations would have some policy as to how employees would be treated if they become ill on the job, especially under these circumstances. Yes, but what is very important is that there is dialogue and persons comply with the instructions and the bulletins that are put out by the Ministry of Health. There are guidelines given, there are protocols given, and that is what we encourage persons to pay attention to, as well as social distancing, very important. But in all of this, please make every effort to make sure that your employees and yourselves are protected. It may mean that businesses will have to conduct their affairs a little bit differently, and it's a sacrifice.
Coming up after the break, Caribbean Tires donates over 100 boxes of hand sanitizers. One local company has been working to keep the COVID-19 at bay while spreading some goodwill. Caribbean Tires is giving away over 100 cases of hand sanitizers to frontline personnel and other essential service providers. Today, we here at Great Belize Productions received a box from the kind folks at Caribbean Tires. A few other recipients, including the Belize Bus Association, the KHMH, and the police. Marketing coordinator Judy Perez says that the company imported a stock but secured a sizable quantity to help out. Perez tells us more.
We are a company that always think about safety. Safety is our number one priority. And during this time, the COVID, we as a company has been looking at the whole country on a whole as how we can assist. When the shortage went for the hand sanitizers, we decided to bring in some from one of our suppliers of whom we do business with. And they were more than happy to hear that Belize didn't have, and they shipped us some. When we got them, we have decided as a company that we do not want to sell all of these hand sanitizers. We want to give back to the country on a whole. All of these frontline people and like that we really think that is there to make the country move forward, to assist the people. So we decided that we want to do this to give away. So we have been giving them away to the police department, the Carl Hushner. We even went to the children's home, you know, the media, everyone that are putting their life out there for us. So this is very important for us.
All right. Approximately, maybe how many bottles have you given away?
Well, actually, I think overall, because we have been doing this countrywide, it's maybe over 100 or more cases of what we have given away. So I would like to encourage any other company, you know, because we are feeling by it also. We don't have the business as what we used to have. So, but we are still in, you know, we still want to do this to give back. So I'm encouraging any other company that can do it to please, because this, at the end of the day, is for all of us. It's not only for us as Caribbean Tire, as a company with staff and directors. It's not. The safety is for each and every one of us.
Caribbean Tire says that they will be open during the state of emergency to service vehicles, but want to remind the public that they are adhering to all the preventative protocols set out by the Ministry of Health. This is our last newscast prior to the start of the national state of emergency. Now, the media is considered an essential service, but there's still limitations. So in the months ahead, you are likely to see shorter newscasts. Speaking on another forum today, produced by Colorblind Productions, Attorney General Michael Parafit said that the media should not take the listing for granted.
We'll run into a problem with some news people, you know. They have been clamoring for essential service status, and they've been granted it, essential service. But like I said, not because you're essential service means that you automatically get a pass to be out there after 8.
You have to go tour from work.
You have to, you know, even so, I would encourage the news people to start their news earlier, finish earlier, and have their people work from home. So if your news starts at 6:30, try to make sure it's finished by 7:30 so that you can be home by 8, because it's not automatic that you'll be allowed to be out after 8. And the question will be, what purpose do you have after 8?
Okay.
What purpose if everything is shut down?
A release issued late this evening on the matter of essential services says the following, quote, authorized essential workers as outlined in Schedule 1 of SI number 46 of 2020 who are required to work and move without restrictions during the curfew hours will be allowed to move freely at any place or any time while observing social distancing protocols with a pass authorized and signed by the Minister of National Security, unquote. And that's the news. Don't forget that tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/News5Live. I'm Marlene Cuellar. Thanks for joining us. And from all of us here at News 5, remember to wash your hands and stay home. Good night.